Good morning everyone. Namaskar to all. This is Balneet Singh Bedi. I welcome all of you to the daily news analysis session by Tathastu ICS. Good morning Pranjal, Amrita, Gagan. Good morning everyone. Let's start with today's session. Before we start the session, these are the course announcements by Tathastu ICS. The first is GS Foundation morning batch, which is starting from 19th of April. Then we have GS Foundation evening batch, which is again starting on 19th of April. We have two optionals, that is philosophy optional as well as PSIR optional. Philosophy optional is starting from 7th of April 2025. It's been taken by Dr. Tanu Jain ma'am as well as her team. Good morning Anjali, Ritik, Rishi, Khan Bhai, Ruchi, Sonali, Subhadra. Good morning everyone. Then we have PSIR optional by Manoj Sharma sir, who has experience of over 22 years. And both the optional batches are starting from 7th of April 2025. So those who wants to get enrolled, you still have a week to go. You can contact the Tathastu ICS team and get enrolled and take the admission. Now let's start today's news analysis session. Under mains Manthan, we have four important editorials. The first editorial talks about the governor's power over the state bills. Karnataka Governor Thawar Chand Gehlot has reserved mineral bill for the President consideration. We will not get into that, but we will see the governor's power over the state bills, under what constitutional provisions governor reserved the bill for President consideration, what about assent of the bill, what about withholding assent, and all of that we will be discussing under this. Then we have India's geopolitical vision should be larger. This editorial has been written by T.S. Tirumurthy, who was permanent representative of India to United Nations in 2022, as well as the President of United Nations Security Council in 2021. So he was a top diplomat. And what he's saying, this editorial talks about the evolving role of India in geopolitical arena, and India needs to expand its horizon in order to deal with the regional conflict, in order to deal with the international conflicts. Then we have the trade war. As we all know, United States of America's President Donald Trump has imposed tariffs which are set to take place from April 2nd. We will be seeing what is trade war, what are tariffs, what are subsidies, what are quota system, what about the retaliatory measures, as well as what impact would it have on you, on me, on the global market. We will be seeing under this editorial. Then last, we will see China's growing presence in African continent, in Africa's nuclear energy project, and how Africans are resorting to nuclear energy in order to meet their electricity shortage needs. Good morning Tamanna, Sanjay, Thantu, good morning everyone. Then under prelims we have free speech. We will be seeing in detail freedom of speech and expression. Under what article do we cover, and is that right is absolute, and if not absolute, what sort of reasonable restrictions are imposed on it. Now the first one, Karnataka Governor refers mineral tax bill for President's assent. Why in news? It's in news because Karnataka's Governor Thawar Chand Gehlot has reserved the mineral bill for President consideration, and it covers the part of GS2, that is Indian polity. Now the first slide, the Article 200 of Indian Constitution outlines the process of a bill which is passed by the state legislative assembly of a state to be presented to the governor for assent. So once a state legislative assembly passes a bill, they need assent of the governor. This is very basic. Now once the bill is presented to the governor Thawar Chand Gehlot, he has three options. One, he can give assent to the bill. Once he gives assent to the bill, that bill becomes an act. Second option, he has the authority to withhold the assent. Once he withhold the assent to that bill, the bill ends and it does not become an act. Then third option he has to reserve the bill for consideration by the president. So under for the mineral tax bill, the governor has opted for this, to reserve the bill for the consideration of President Draupadi Murmu. And then fourth option he can also return the bill to the state legislative assembly for reconsideration. But if it is an ordinary bill, he can return the bill to the state legislative assembly. But if it is a money bill, it cannot be returned. This is very, very important, and I hope you all would be knowing this. If it is a money bill, it cannot be returned to the state legislative assembly. In that case, governor has two options: either give his assent or withhold his assent. But usually governor give the assent, president give the assent, because the money bill is being introduced in the state legislative assembly or the parliament with his or her prior permission. गवर्नर और प्रेसिडेंट की परमिशन के बाद ही पार्लियामेंट और स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली में मनी बिल को इंट्रोड्यूस किया जाता है. सो गवर्नर में ऑल्सो रिटर्न द बिल. Once the governor returned the ordinary bill to the state legislative assembly for reconsideration, then if the state legislative assembly passes that bill again with or without amendments, the governor is bound to give his assent. Then he cannot withhold the assent. He is bound to give assent to the bill. Now we will see in the next slide Article 201. Article 201 talks about what exactly this news is about, that what happens once a bill is reserved by the governor for the president's consideration. So it states, when a bill is reserved for the consideration of the president may give his assent or may withhold his assent to the bill. The president may also direct the governor to return the bill to the state legislature assembly. President can ask Thawar Chand Gehlot that you do one thing, you return this bill to the Karnataka assembly. Once you give the Karnataka assembly, so Karnataka assembly has to return the bill within 6 months, and once the bill is returned to the president is not bound to give his assent to the bill. Governor is bound. अगर governor एक बार वापस कर देगा, governor is bound to give his assent, but president is not bound to give his assent. And once the governor reserved the bill for the president consideration, governor का उसके बाद कोई भी रोल नहीं है. उसके बाद द्रौपदी मुर्मू would see and Karnataka State Legislative Assembly would see everything. Governor's role would be nowhere. So for reconsideration, the state legislature shall reconsider it within 6 months and present it again to the president. But president then is not bound to give his assent. However, it is not obligatory for the president to give his assent for a reconsidered bill. Right? Then next, options available with the governor. So governor, the reservation is obligatory where the bill passed by the legislature, if the state legislative assembly is passing a bill which is endangering the position of the state high court, then it is obligatory, it is mandatory for the governor to reserve that bill for the president consideration. And apart from that, governor can also reserve the bill if it follows these 5 points. These are important. Against the provisions of the constitution, if there are laws, if there are actions which are going against the provisions of the constitution, governor can reserve the bill. Then opposed to DPSPs. These are the directives by the constitution to the state to implement laws. They are the guidelines, they are the fundamental for the governance of the country, to promote social democracy, to promote economic democracy. If they are opposing the DPSPs, then also governor can reserve the bill for the president consideration. Against the larger interest of the country, if the state legislative assembly is passing a law which is threatening the sovereignty of India, unity of India, integrity of India, if it is posing some sort of harm, internal disturbance, external aggression to India, the governor has the right to keep the bill for precedent consideration of grave national importance. If it requires the central level intervention, governor can reserve the bill. It also deals with the compulsory acquisition of property under Article 31A. So what does it talk about? It protects all the laws which are imposed by the state for the compulsory acquisition of the properties from being challenged in the court on the grounds of violation of fundamental rights under Article 14 and under Article 19. So those laws are also covered under this. Then we will go to the next. That is issues with pending bills. So what are the issues? Agar bills ko pending rakha ja raha hai by governor, as we all know the recent controversy about the Tamil Nadu governor R.N. Ravi and M.K. Stalin government. There is a tussle between the governor as well as the elected government. So the matter is still in the Supreme Court. There are ongoing discussions, ongoing deliberations, and we will be seeing what will be the result, what Supreme Court judgment will be given, and I will share two judgments with you as well. So first we will discuss the issues with the pending bills. Now issues with the pending bill, the first one is delay in decision making. Suppose Legislative Assembly has passed a bill, governor has kept it under the consideration, kept it reserved. It would affect the functioning of the state government. It would delay in implementation of laws, implementation of key policies. Then it undermines the democratic process. Supreme Court has very dramatically reiterated. It has said governor is not elected representative. The governor has to behave within the constitutional limits. It needs to behave within the constitutional bounds. He is not elected representative. He has been appointed by the center. Rather, the state government is the one which has appointed by the people of a state. So it undermines the democratic process. Then public perception. What public perception? If the governor has reserved the bill, public would think, oh, governor is involved in corruption. There is inefficiency in the government, right? There is poor governance. So all this will affect the image of the state government. And then last, lack of accountability. Do we know for how long the governor can withhold the bill? We do not know. There is no time frame mentioned in the constitution that within this time frame governor has to return the bill. There is no time frame. So there is lack of accountability, lack of transparency. Governor is just sitting over the bill. He is not communicating the reasons. Why? Because of political reasons. And because of that political reasons, there is hampering of the functioning of the state government. There is delay in the implementation of laws, implementation of policies. So you should be knowing this as well. There could be a question in mains because of the recent controversies, and every year there is a tussle between the governor as well as the state government. Then what should be the way forward? Okay, before way forward, I'll tell you two main judgments you should be knowing. We have Nabam Rabia case 2016. Then we have Punjab Governor case 2023. These are the recent judgments. Nawab Rabia case as well as Punjab Governor case. I have not mentioned it in the PPT. You can just slide through. Both these cases needs to be learnt by you. What Supreme Court is saying in these cases, that governor should communicate the reason, should not withhold the bill indefinitely. He should communicate the reason. He should look for the possible solution. He should look for the option to return the bill and ask the state legislative assembly to reconsider it with or without amendments. So Supreme Court has reiterated in both these cases. Which cases? Punjab Governor case, Nawab Rabia case in 2016. Then what should be the way forward? I hope you have written it down. So way forward should be governor should follow Article 200 promptly to address bills and returning them for reconsideration to uphold the legislative authority. Ultimately, they are the elected representatives and governor is just a person who has been appointed by the center. Then clear guidelines and transparency in decision making can prevent misunderstanding to ensure accountability, to ensure transparency. Bharati, Amrendra, all of you, please focus here. Then ongoing discussions and legal clarity on the governor's role can help streamline the process and avoid unnecessary conflicts. Then we have a prelims PYQ. Please solve this PYQ. Wait. Renuma, please look at the question again. Absolutely right, Khan Bhai, Anjali, Abhinandan, Love Panchi, Anjali, Dheeraj, Mamta, wrong answer. Roshni, Charita, Pragati, Amrita, Rishi, all of you have given the correct answer. Which of the following are the discretionary powers given to the governor of a state? This question was asked in 2014. First, sending a report to the president for imposing the president rule. Absolutely right. It's a discretionary power. Appointing the ministers, it is not a discretionary power. It's a constitutional obligation. Then reserving certain bills passed by the state legislature for consideration by the president of India. Again, this is a discretionary power. As I have just mentioned, a Karnataka governor, mineral tax bill for the president consideration. Then making the rules to conduct business. Is this a discretionary power? No. So 1 and 3 is the correct answer. Right? Yes, Pragati, Ruchi, Sonali, you guys have given the correct answer. Very good. Then next editorial talks about the India's geopolitical vision should be larger. As I've mentioned, it's has been written by T.S. Murthy. I've given the explanation. This editorial talks about the geopolitical role of India, and India should engage not only in economic development but also in the geopolitical issues, the regional conflicts, the international conflicts, and solve them out. India should act as a mediator. If India is not gonna do, other global players would do. What global players? Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. We all are seeing that what they are doing, and that we will be seeing in the further discussion. So why in news? India's relation with other global power as well as geopolitics, syllabus GS2, international relations. Now the first, India's historical geopolitical role. This talks about that India has historically played significant role in the regional conflicts. What regional conflicts? First, 1971 war. India supported Mukt Bahini. Mukt Bahini in East Pakistan. Who were they? They were the freedom fighters, and that led to birth of Bangladesh. Bangladesh Liberation War in 1971. Then we have Maldives, 1988. So in 1988 there was a military coup in Maldives. India intervened with Operation Cactus. Under Operation Cactus, it restored the government under Mahmoud Gayoom. India restored the government. It also helped the Sri Lankan government to defeat LTTE, that is Liberation Tiger Front of Tamil Eelam, right? It's a militant organization, and it has helped Sri Lanka to defeat the LTT in Sri Lanka. India has also combated piracy in Indian Ocean, which has contributed to maritime security. Piracy is to attack on ships so that you can take the things from there, right? It's basically chori karna, right? So piracy is that attacking the ships, and it has contributed the regional security as well as maritime security. So Indian Navy has taken lot of measures for the smooth and safe passage of the commercial vehicles as well as enhance the maritime security of the region. So editorial is saying that in history as well, India has played a very important role in the regional as well as international conflicts. And what sort of global contributions India has made? Vaccine Maitri. We all know we have supplied COVID-19 vaccines to the developing nations, and that related to global health diplomacy. Then we have International Solar Alliance, basically to promote solar energy globally, especially among the tropical countries. International Solar Alliance. We also contributed to digital public infrastructure. We have UPI, Unified Payment Interface. Then we have Aadhaar. Aadhaar is digital identity, right? It's by the Indian government. It has also been the first responder in natural disasters, reflecting its contribution to the global warfare. We know the unfortunate incident yesterday, earthquake, 7.7 magnitude earthquake in Myanmar, in Thailand, and our Prime Minister has promised all sort of help to both the countries. Why both the countries are important to us? Because we are member of BIMSTEC. Myanmar and Thailand are the member countries of BIMSTEC. So our honorable PM, so we are the first responder because Myanmar is our neighbor. We have a sharing border with Myanmar. We have promised all sort of financial help as well as other help to these countries, and our Prime Minister was scheduled to visit Bangkok for 6th BIMSTEC summit on 4th to 5th of April, right? So we were about to do that. Now let's see what will happen. Then next, India's current approach. India is focusing only on economic growth, resulting in becoming the 5th largest economy, which is very good. But the editorial is saying the focus on economic stability has led to reticent foreign policy. Reticent foreign policy means restrictive foreign policy. Restrictive and cautious in communication or action. हमने अपनी foreign policy को बहुत limit कर दिया है. हम फालतू किसी के matter में बोल ही नहीं रहे हैं. We are just focusing on economic growth. Why? So that active engagement in global conflicts could lead to slow down in the economic growth within the borders of India. So we are following reticent foreign policy. Then shifting geopolitical landscape. What it is saying, the article discusses the India's geopolitical reticence and the nation's aspiration to be a global power and seek a permanent seat in UNSC require more involvement. अगर India को एक permanent seat चाहिए UNSC में, then it has to take active involvement, active participation in other conflicts and act as a mediator, right? India has distanced itself from major regional and global conflicts. What regional conflicts? West Asia conflict, Ukraine-Russia conflict. What's happening in West Asia? We all know US has attacked Houthis in Yemen. We all know what's happening in Israel and Palestine. Iraq's political instability, Iran's nuclear sanctions. We all are aware of all these developments there. Syrian civil war is going on. So all these conflicts, India has maintained distance to avoid disrupting relations and alliances, but this approach is becoming less viable as compared to the present global stature. Then the next risk of India's reticence, what risk India would have अगर India participate ही नहीं करेगा, what risk India would be facing. So India's non-interventionist stand, risk leaving Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Qatar could fill. Saudi Arabia, we all know recently in Saudi Arabia US diplomat officials as well as Russian officials, they sat in Saudi Arabia and they're discussing to end Russia-Ukraine conflict. Qatar played a very important role when Taliban wanted to took over Afghanistan. So Qatar was the mediator between the US as well as the Taliban. So these countries are taking place which India could have taken. This editorial is saying these countries have actively engaged in conflicts in Europe, West Asia, Africa as well as South China Sea. South China Sea, China is following aggressive expansionist policy. It's following maritime territorial aggression in South China Sea. Despite the PCA order, Permanent Court of Arbitration order in 2016, that China has no legal basis in South China Sea. Still China is very much active in the South China Sea, and rather than adhering to the international norm, it is building more military infrastructure. Then this global reset may force India to act or risk sideline in global issues, as we have seen in Afghanistan Troika plus talks. So जब अफगानिस्तान की बातचीत हो रही थी in 2021 before Taliban took over, so India was not invited, and you'll be surprised to know who all were the parties: US, Russia, China, and the fourth party was very unexpected, that was Pakistan, but India was sidelined, India was avoided. So editorial is saying that this should not happen again. Expectations, what are the expectations from India? As the world's largest democracy and a growing economic power, its credibility and diplomatic weight will naturally draw higher expectations. This was particularly evident during the Ukraine war, where India played a very balancing role. We didn't vote against the Russia and not even in favor of Ukraine, and emphasizing dialogue between the Russia and Ukraine. Our Prime Minister has reiterated again and again for global peace, even in front of the President of Russia, that is Vladimir Putin. Then geopolitical clout and strategic partnership. As global powers like the US and China shift towards strategic deals, India must work on strengthening the alliances outside the region as well. This includes engage with Europe, engage with Central Asia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, all these countries. India should build a strong relation, especially after its refusal to join the RCEP. RCEP is a free trade agreement between ASEAN as well as between China, South Korea, Japan, Australia and New Zealand. India joined, but India left RCEP due to economic reasons. Then geopolitical and economic symbiosis. Here the article emphasizes that economic development and geopolitical should not be mutually exclusive. So what is it saying? The editorial is saying, माना कि India is focusing on its economic growth, economic development, but Indian foreign policy should not look economic growth, economic development apart from the geopolitics. Both the things, economic growth and geopolitics, should work together rather than seeing them as conflicting arenas and dealing with them separately. It's the need of the hour. India's economic rise must go hand in hand with assertive geopolitical stance, helping to navigate the changing global order while safeguarding its interest. With this, last, role of multi-alignment. The concept of multi-alignment to balance relation with multiple global powers is presented as India's strategic approach. We need to have the approach of multi-alignment. सिर्फ bilateral relation नहीं, global और countries के साथ we need to align. This will allow India to position itself as a global power while securing strategic relations with key players in different regions. As he said, deal with Europe, deal with West Asian conflicts, go to Central Asia, deal with it, deal with Southeast Asian, just South China Sea का conflict चल रहा है, deal with that, deal with Africa, deal with South America, deal with all the issues. India should be present everywhere in order to become a global superpower. Then the next editorial, what is trade war? Why in news? We all know US tariffs on the global world, on China, Mexico, India. It's scheduled to take place from April 2. Then which part of status? That is GS3, Indian economy. Then what happened? Trade war occurs. So basically what is trade war? Trade war, just a minute. So what is trade war? Trade war occurs when a country imposes tariffs, quotas, as well as retaliatory measures on the goods and services of the imported country, which lead to economic tensions between both the countries. So a trade war occurs when the countries impose tariffs, quotas and other restrictions on each other goods and services in a retaliatory manner, leading to escalating economic tensions. It is essentially an economic conflict. We have heard military conflict, political conflict, but the trade war is economic conflict, where each country tries to protect its own industries and jobs by increasing barriers to trade, typically in response to the action of another country. Now US is saying, India से जो भी goods आएंगे मैं उसके ऊपर 25% tariff लगाऊंगा. I am giving you a hypothetical example. Then China से जो goods आएंगे उसमें मैं 20% tariff लगाऊंगा. Canada से जो आएंगे उसके ऊपर मैं 5% लगाऊंगा. So what happened? The country जिनके goods and services पे हम tariff लगा रहे हैं, that country also retaliates. That country also says, US से जो हमें goods आएंगे उसके ऊपर हम भी tariff लगाएंगे. So this is retaliatory measures. This is imposition of tariffs, restrictions, quotas, and it lead to economic tensions. Then the next features of trade war, tariff. Now what is a tariff? First, country imposes amount on the imported goods and services so that that imported good becomes expensive and consumers will demand more of the domestically produced goods, right? So these are tariffs. Then we have quotas. What are quotas? This is not quota system SCST, this is quota in economic term. Quota refers to limit the quantity of goods that needs to be imported from another country. Suppose पहले हमें 100 टन कहीं से चावल आ रहा था, अब हमने इसके ऊपर कोटा लगा दिया 50 टन से ज्यादा चावल बांग्लादेश से इंडिया में नहीं आएगा, to restrict the market access, to give wider market to the domestically produced rice. This is quota. Then we have subsidies. What are subsidies? When countries provide financial aid to the domestic industries to promote their goods. अब मैं अगर गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया अपनी डोमेस्टिक इंडस्ट्रीज को सब्सिडीज देगी, फाइनेंशियल एड देगी कि जो भी तुम गुड्स प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हो उसके प्राइसेस कम कर दो, ऑटोमेटिकली देयर डिमांड वुड राइज इन द ग्लोबल मार्केट, बट दैट वुड लीड टू अनफेयर कंपटीशन. देन लास्ट, रिटेलिएशन. इट्स लाइक अ tit for tat situation. US you impose, I'll impose too. Canada you impose, I'll impose too. So this is retaliation. So tariff, quota, subsidies and retaliation. You can go through this diagram as well. Then last, what would be the impact? It would lead to increased in prices. Automatically जितने इंपोर्टेड गुड्स हैं उनके प्राइसेस बढ़ जाएंगे. अल्टीमेटली हु विल बेयर? द कंज्यूमर्स विल बेयर द बर्डन. सो देयर वुड बी इंक्रीज्ड प्राइसेस, देयर वुड बी सप्लाई चेन डिसरप्शंस. अर्लियर व्हेन यूएस प्रेसिडेंट डोनाल्ड ट्रंप imposed the tariffs on steel and aluminium, what happened was it led to high production cost. The entire manufacturers for the steel and aluminium, they suffered supply chain disruptions. Then it also lead to economic slowdown. How it would lead to economic slowdown? The 2019 report by International Monetary Fund during the earlier term of Donald Trump, what happened was IMF released a report and said the global economic slowdown is due to the US-China trade war. What happened is there are few countries who are totally dependent on their exports, कि जो export से पैसा आ रहा है उसी से वो country चल रही है. अब जो मैं export कर रहा हूँ उसके ऊपर इतना tariff लगा दिया, उसको इतना expensive कर दिया, so automatically those countries would suffer. And when those countries' GDP would suffer, global economic slowdown is meant to happen. There is also job losses. How? Agriculture. Farmers in US, they lost their jobs when China imposed tariffs on their soybeans, on pork. So all the farmers suffered job losses. Most of the farmers suffered that. It automatically lead to geopolitical tensions. It would lead to strained economic relation between both the countries, diplomatically as well as in other arenas as well. It would be a tensed relation. So by this you would be knowing what is trade war, what are tariff, what are quota, what are retaliatory measures, and what would be the impact. Then the next editorial we'll quickly do advantage China in Africa's nuclear energy market race. So basically this talks about China's aim to expand its footprint in the African continent, in the African nuclear energy market, and the editorial is saying that China is taking a lot more steps. US is doing a lot, France is doing a lot, Russia is doing a lot, but what India is doing? India needs to go a long way ahead. Why in news? Nuclear potential in Africa. Again, geopolitics and syllabus, GS paper 2, international relations. Key takeaways from the article: in international relations charita, no one is a friend and no one is a enemy. आपको नहीं पता कब किसकी जरूरत पड़ जाए. So India has to be friend with China. India can't ignore China. We are dependent on China on multiple grounds, right? Even China wants a stable relation, but China is unpredictable. China believes in strategic encroachment, in strategic encirclement, right? It believes in salami slicing tactics, right? It believes in it believes in economic imperialism. So China can't be predicted, but India needs to be friends with China. India needs cordial relation with China. Africa's nuclear energy ambitions. So Africa is increasingly turning to nuclear energy as a potential solution to energy needs with this nuclear energy by 2035. So here they are talking about Africa's nuclear potential, 15,000 megawatt of nuclear energy by 2035. Then Africa's nuclear energy market is poised significant investment opportunity of $105 billion. Uski market itni badi hai that it needs this much investment. In this slide, it's saying what all role countries are playing in order to enhance their coordination with the Africa. The first is France. So France has traditionally dominated, but now it's losing its influence, especially in the Francophone African nations. Francophone African nations where French is widely spoken. Now, which are those nations where French is widely spoken? That is Francophone nations. Those are Niger. Then we have Cameroon. We have DRC, we have Senegal, we have Mali, all these countries where French is widely spoken. US has also started initiating dialogues with the Africa, that is US Africa Nuclear Energy Summit, because US also wants to have a stronghold over the continent. Russia is also signing agreements with Mali, Burkina Faso, Egypt, but its capacity has been hindered due to the ongoing Russian-Ukraine conflict. Then it talks about the China, what China is doing. China is dealing with Africa through International Atomic Energy Agency as well as scholarship programs. It has signed memorandum of understanding with two countries, which is not important. It was there in the news, so I've just mentioned it. And also under its Belt and Road Initiative. So China is also building the infrastructure there under BRI initiative, as well as it's expanding its foot for the nuclear energy program. China is also building transmission networks needed to distribute the electricity from the nuclear power projects. So China is focusing as energy provider as well as infrastructure development. So why Africa would not look up to China? China has become compelling for Africa as well. So BRI initiative, energy भी provide कर रहा है transmission network के through, as well as infrastructure भी build कर रहा है. This is debt trap diplomacy. This is economic imperialism of present day China. Then what would be the impact on India's energy security? India's nuclear generational goal is 100 gigawatt by 2047. You should be knowing this. China's growing dominance would be a challenge to India's access to the uranium resources. Uranium resources in African nations like Namibia, Niger and Burkina Faso. Then we have, okay, Namibia capital is Windhoek. Then we have Niger, it's Niamey. Then we have this is Ouagadougou, right? You should be knowing, because for the past 2-3 years there are multiple prelims questions on African continent. So do not miss this continent. Maybe this year there would not be any question, but for the past 2 years, if you see, they are asking questions from African continent. So do it very religiously. Why to miss 1 mark there? Just read that continent अच्छे से. You might get a question and you get 2 marks in that question. So India signed a civil nuclear cooperation agreement with Namibia and developing uranium miner projects with Niger as well as Namibia. However, China's can hinder India's nuclear energy security and impact its long-term energy plans. What India should do? India should deepen its energy partnership with all the African nations and deal with China as well diplomatically. Then comes the prelims Sarthi. Under prelims Sarthi, we have freedom of speech and expression. Freedom of speech and expression under Article 19. Clause 1, subclause A. What does it say? It states that all citizens shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression. The philosophy behind this article lies in the preamble of the Indian Constitution, which says liberty of thought and expression. So, philosophy behind this article lies in the preamble, where a solemn resolve to secure all its citizens liberty of thought and expression. Now, what this right includes, the following aspects are included. The first is freedom of press, freedom of commercial speech, right to broadcast, right to information, right to criticize, right to expression beyond national boundaries, right not to speak, and right to be silent. Now here, if I tell you freedom of press was in Ramesh Thapar case, you should be knowing. When you are writing polity answers, you should be knowing, you should be aware of these cases. The more judgments you mention, the more cases you mention with the year and to the point what that case was about, you get extra marks. The more articles you mention, you get extra marks. Then I'm just telling you the important ones. Right to information, Association of Democratic Reform case. You just need to remember this, not versus Union of India, versus this, nothing. You don't have that much time. You just have to write the whole answer in 250 words. So you just have to mention the crux. That is Ramesh Thapar case, Association of Democratic Reforms, and right to expression beyond national boundaries, very famous case, Menaka Gandhi case. So learn these cases and you can mention if there is ever a question on freedom of speech. Then the next, we have elements. The right is available only to a citizen of India and not to the foreign nationals. Again, it's important. I hope you all would know, but few of you who don't know, you should be knowing. Yes, not very good, Mamta, not for foreign people. Khan Bhai, absolutely. RTI Act 2005. It includes the right to express one's views and opinions on any issue through any medium, by mouth, writing, printing, picture, film, movie, etc. This right, however, not absolute. It's not absolute in nature. There are few reasonable restrictions, and these reasonable restrictions are mentioned in Article 19, Clause 2. Right, these reasonable restrictions. Now what are the restrictions? Sovereignty and integrity of India. If you are speaking something against the country, against the sovereignty of India, against the unity of India, there would be a problem. Against the security of the state, friendly relations with the foreign states, public order, decency, morality, or in relation to contempt of court, defamation, or incitement to an offense. So with this, we have completed, but I have a prelims practice question for you. Please give me the correct answer and solve it in a minute. Absolutely right. Tamanna, Pragati, Khan Bhai, Rishi has given the wrong answer. Mitra has given the wrong answer. Sriram, beta, don't write 1 and 3, 1 and 2. I've given you A, B, C, D. Right? Even in the OMR sheet, you have to mark, you have to fill the A, B, C, D. You don't have to write 1 and 3, 1 and 3. Tamanna, yeah, B. Just write B. Why B, 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 B? You just have to write B. So I'll read a question for you. Which of the following statements regarding the freedom of speech and expression under Article 19(1)(a) of the Indian Constitution are correct? So the first, freedom of speech is an absolute right. No, it's not absolute. There are reasonable restrictions on it. The right to freedom includes the right to unrestricted speech. No, restricted speech for sovereignty, integrity, incitement to offense, morality, public order, decency, all of those are the grounds. So one is wrong, second is wrong, then third says, okay, 1 and 2 can't be there, this can't be there, this can't be there. Automatically option 2 is correct, but still we will read it. Reasonable restrictions on freedom can be imposed under Article 19(2) on grounds of national security, public order, decency and morality. Freedom of speech includes right to criticize government policies and action, but cannot extend to hate speech and incitement to violence. So the correct answer is B. It's okay, Rishi. It's absolutely fine. Do not get discouraged. These temporary setbacks should not hold you, and you should believe in yourself. Be very patient while studying. Trust the process. Show discipline every day. Show consistency every day. As we often say, consistency make ordinary students extraordinary. So be extraordinary and try to study religiously every day. Your small efforts would show you the results. So all the very best to all of you. Study well. Dheeraj, Mitra, Vikas, Sonali, thank you so much. Gagan, thank you. I will upload the PDF in the Telegram group just right after this live session. So all the very best to all of you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Thank you.